All right. Can you hear me? Yep, I'm Tori. I'm a senior product designer at Salesforce. I've been there for the past 3 years. I'm trying to remember what I wrote in my bio. I love, solving solutions for complex problems, and I hang out with my 1-year-old daughter and read books and cook. So there's my bio. All right, am I sharing? Yep. And I apologize. I left the clicker in the other room. If I could have that would be great. Thank you so much. But I'll start. All right. Sorry. Yeah, this is it. I like rushed in here and I forgot the clicker. I'm trying to keep us off track of time. Thank you so much. No problem. All right. Okay, so today I'm here to talk to you about the principles of relationship design. So, what is relationship design? It's a practice that anyone can use, and it centers around the notion that strong relationships between customers, business, employees, communities help create more sustainable solutions and help to drive social change. So, relationship design really builds off of the human-centered design foundations in UX design and service design. So, UX design focuses on the experience that a person has with the product, and that's usually a digital product. Service design focuses on all of the touch points that that person has with a company throughout their journey. And relationship design builds on both of those to not only focus on someone's individual experiences with a product, but their relationships with other people, their engagements over time, how they're embedded in their communities and within their society. So, in relationship design has a few building blocks. The first being the 4 mindsets. Those are courage, compassion, intention, and reciprocity. The second one being the tools, which many of you I'm sure have heard of before. Jobs to be done, consequence scanning, journey mapping, things like that. And the last one are the principles, which are values driven, accountability, social, and scale. I am sure that you can tell by the title of my talk that we will be covering the principles. So, people today are really demanding more from the companies that they engage with. And relationship design is all about engagement. So values are no longer an option for companies. Consumers are making values-driven decisions, and they're demanding that companies do that as well. The world needs more accountable designers. Customers really want accountability and transparency in their products, the services, and the business operations that companies have. And social, everything is social nowadays. There are rarely any solo builders, solo users. The more that the world becomes interconnected, we really need design and designers to consider how their choices affect not only an end user, but the interactions that they have and the people that they have relationships with and the world around them. And lastly, scale. As data and information continue to scale, we really need to make sure that our businesses are scaling our relationships with those customers. So why use relationship design? In these past couple of COVID years, I'll call them, we've seen some massive shifts in the way that people work. And that was already a change that was happening in the business world, and it was just accelerated very quickly when that happened. And so we're working in a completely new landscape. People are working from home. People are working from anywhere. We've got that notion of quiet quitting, and we've all been witness to the Great Resignation. The way that we support one another at work has changed. How do we give people the cognitive space to develop relationships in this new world? How do we give them the time to reflect, recharge, maybe build their own personal skills that they want to pursue? And lastly, but not least importantly, purpose and values are now a business imperative. You'll see up here, 90% of consumers believe that companies have a responsibility to impact the world in a positive way. And 79% of the workforce says that they would consider leaving an employer if they did not share their values. So those are some really big statistics for businesses to take into consideration. So the juicy part. How do we use relationship design? Well, relationship design builds on design thinking. And I'm sure many of you are pretty familiar with those 5 phases of design. Discover, define, design, deliver, and deploy. You may have seen them with different names. They're all essentially the same thing. What relationship design asks you to do is to consider values, accountability, scale, and the social context within each of these phases of design. So the first phase of design is the discover phase. So in this phase, you're really understanding your problem, laying that all out, doing some research, getting that all covered. What relationship design asks you to do is to consider the wider ramifications of what your solution may be. Some questions you may ask yourself from a relationship design point of view are there any wider trends relevant to what I'm designing? Am I making sure that marginalized groups have a say in my design process? Do I have any biases that might hinder the way that I'm thinking through this process? And is there any relevant customer feedback that we have from earlier implementations that could be pertinent in this design? The next phase is the define phase. So in this phase, what we're doing is we're really framing our problem. And we kind of have an idea of the point of view that we have for our solution. A question that you may be guided by in this one is, what could I build? Or what should I build? I'm sorry. So what relationship design asks you to look at are the roles of diversity and values in your process. Am I making sure that diverse opinions are being heard in decisions that matter during my design process? Is there any unintentional harm that's happening with what concept I'm coming up with? And are my processes and products really showing the values that I have and the business has? And the third phase is the design phase. So in this phase, you're asking yourself 2 questions. What should I build, but at a higher fidelity than the define stage? And then also, what does that look like? What does that feel like? How will this behave? And relationship design asks us to consider what the social impact of that solution might be. So some questions you may ask yourself here are, again, is there any unintentional harm that this solution could have on society or our users? Are there any domino effects that could cause pain point for others? Am I looking through the lens of the 4 mindsets, which you saw earlier, that we have not covered, but those are compassion, courage, intention, reciprocity. And I'm making sure that the values of inclusive design are in this solution. And I will cover deliver and deploy together. So 4 and 5. So these are really when you're building out your solution. A designer in this phase would probably be refining their prototypes, getting them ready for production. So in this phase, relationship design asks about social context and accountability. Right, this is going out into the world. We want to make sure it's the right thing. So is your concept going to scale well? Is it accessible, especially to those marginalized groups that we talked about? Are there any unintended uses that you have found, and do those align with your values, not only as a designer, but for your company? So you see, if you follow the design process, you're really empathizing with your users, you're going to come up with a better product. If you pair that design process with relationship design, you'll have better internal relationships, and you'll foster better external relationships, which over time will lead to better business value. And that is it for relationship design today. If you'd like to learn more, please check it out in the trailhead. And there's also a QR code where you can learn more at salesforce.com. Thank you.